This is Jamie Drummond for Good Food Revolution. I'm joined all the way from Alto Adige by none other than Harald Cronst, who is joining us from Cantina Kurtatsch. How are you today, sir?
Thank you, Jamie. I'm very good.
All right, for all those people unfamiliar with the cantina that you work with,
Mhm.
tell us a little bit about it. I had one question for you. When doing some research, I noticed that on your website, you're one of the oldest cooperatives in the Alto
Mhm.
Adige.
Mhm.
You were founded in 1900.
Yeah.
You have 190 growers you work with, and they farm 190 hectares. My question was this amazing foresight at the turn of the last century or some creative marketing today?
No, the number is occasional, to be honest. So first of all, I get to correct you in a one way that we
Yes.
don't have like 190 growers. We have 190 owners. I'm just an employee by those 190 owners. It's actually a small difference, but it
No,
has a
no.
significant
Yeah, yeah.
impact.
Semantics, yeah.
So basically, because now I'm starting with the history, and that all makes sense if you understand the very beginning. Those co-ops here in Alto Adige have been founded around that area. So we are the fourth oldest in our region, and then 20 years after, that's where almost all of them have been founded. And back at that time, the farmers, the small scale family farmers, they did not have enough income to survive, especially because there was a kind of a oligopoly or almost a monopoly of merchants which dictated the paying price which of their grapes would they get. And the idea was, let's bundle ourselves together, let's hire a professional winemaker and maybe a professional guy selling those wines, being able to get enough money and income and to have a better living. It was all about to overcome more the crisis then which followed in the after years, by uniting forces, and that was the main idea, everything. So just to give you a little understanding about the region itself, which is also very unique in terms of viticulture, because we have 5,700 hectares and 5,000 vine growers. And that number is all only possible because more than 70% is done by actually now 12 of those cooperative
I see.
wineries. And we are those 12, we're one of those 12 co-ops, and we are highly responsible that that the small scale family farming what we have here with this 1-2 hectares per grower in the whole region is able to exist and to continue. So if you look a closer look, all those farmers, they don't have only vineyards. They are mostly 80-90%. They also live on vineyards and apple orchards.
Indeed. Yeah.
So they have the apple orchards in the valley, the vineyards on the slopes. And so this is a very important construct for the region itself to maintain really these tiny farm sizes. And luckily then, about 80 years later after our foundation, about in the 80, 90, in the 80s, 90s, that's where then finally the quality revolution has started in our region. And nowadays, we're definitely the only region in the world where cooperative wineries are among the very top wineries in terms of awards, of images
For sure.
in the region. And that's something
Well,
really unique and something we're proud of, but it needs some kind of an explanation because it's not like granted if you hear about co-ops in general.
why do you think it is that your co-op is one of those co-ops that give co-ops a good name?
Well, definitely because it has since more than 30 years strictly focused on the quality. So it was all about getting a higher income for our farmers. And that started with with a very own payment system. So everything relies strictly on the quality of the grapes. This is well, not in quality combined now since more than 7 years now, combined also with sustainability. The more they do towards sustainability, the higher then is the payment price. So it's all about finding the right mechanism to pay the farmers, because that language is the language everybody understands, even farmers farming for generations. And secondly, and I think this distinguishes us from most other wineries, is the quality of the sites. The Kurtatsch, the town of Kurtatsch, is the only town in Europe having an altitude level difference of 700 meters of vineyards in the same town.
Yep.
And it's almost all is in slopes, most of them steeps. And I would count at least for 5 varieties we have among the top sites of the region. And of course, if you want to make a great, outstanding wine, you need to have a great site. That is the base and the foundation of it.
So how many different terroir are you talking about? It's quite varied up there, is it not? It's mainly has a dolomitic base, I think, so magnesium carbonate, but your topsoils are vastly different all over the region, right?
Yeah, very different about the whole region. So Alto Adige generally is a kind of a mosaic of different sites and terroirs. If you just look at the altitude level difference, this is stunning by itself. In addition to that, you have different soils and the expositions. So in our case, we have those 700 meters. We have 2 soil types. So the majority, where almost all our white wines are, is the Dolomite limestone, like you said. And then on the northern side of the town, we have red sandy clay soils, which where we have the Gewürztraminer, as well as our Merlot and our Lagrein wines. So those 2 are the main soil types. And then you have to think that every 100 meters you step up, the terroir basically changes. So nowadays we are the leading winery of the future UGA concept Alto Adige is implementing. UGA is, like you might know from the Barolo area, the MGA. So we are the winery producing most officially single site wines. This is something which will be take place from Vita 2024 on. So you might hear this in future.
I see.
But also all our philosophy is based on that concept, on this kind of on this terroir concept, reflecting the terroir in the glass. It's all about that, and all differences of different terroirs.
Now, I was looking, and you have quite a large range of wines. How many grapes are you growing with those 190 owners?
So we have 13 different grapes. You have to think that, it's not that we want to grow as many grapes as possible in order to satisfy the different marketing needs. It's the other way around, we're actually thinking. Because in order to produce an outstanding wine, you need to identify the right variety for that right terroir. And sometimes it's a variety you would not think of Alto Adige in the first place. For example, we are known since the 90s for Merlot and Cabernet, which is not like the main sought after varieties in Alto Adige, but in our own terroir, and we have among the warmest sites on the first slopes of the mountain. It gives excellent results. We were able to compare even with the biggest names of Bordeaux and of Tuscany in good vintages. So it's all about that, finding out the right variety in the right place, and then you might end up in our diversity of the terroir having so many wines, about a little bit more than 30 wines, 33 wines at the moment. Yeah, but we produce for each variety 2 wines in general, kind of a classic, and then a single site, or a top selection wine, if you want to call it, just to give you an idea. And in some exception, it might be even more than one, because we have different terroirs and we want to reflect that, like it is in the case of our Pinot Noirs, for example.
Fantastic. You didn't mention Pinot Noir earlier. How much Pinot Noir do you make?
So we produce three Pinot Noirs and one Rosé out of Pinot Noir.
Right, okay.
It's the only variety which does not grow in Kurtatsch. It grows in the other side of the valley. Maybe you even could see it from my video
Oh,
because we are in the
wow.
tasting room, and let's see if the camera
Oh,
adjusts.
fantastic.
You see out there at the other valley floor there in a higher, lighter green and
Yes.
the mountain slope. These are among the top sides of Pinot Noir.
Oh,
On the right here, you see, and we produce two of them on the higher elevated side. We have the Glen, is it called, and the Mazon on the lower side or the right corner, surrounded by forests in the slope. That is Mazon. Mazon is known to be the top cru Pinot Noir in Italy. The most expensive Pinot Noirs come from there, and we're happy to produce those two different terroir, Pinot Noirs because the terroir is different, and so we think we should reflect this different
sure.
types.
It's great. When I think of your cooperative, I think of Alpine wines, and you showing me that view over to the mountain there. That was quite lovely, quite wonderful. Now, when you're talking about Pinot Noir, just to stick on that, what kind of clonal material are you using there? I'm guessing I mean, having tasted some Pinots from the region, they tend to be much more ethereal and almost herbal in a manner. Would that be fair?
Yeah, yeah. I think nowadays there might be, if the trend goes in my eyes, we have two different styles, I would say, of
Right.
Pinot Noir now. So more of a more modern style, which where in the cellar you work more to a more reductive way,
Yeah.
having trying to have them as much as fresh as possible. Um, and on the other hand side, a more open style, a more ready to drink and a bit more riper, a little more woody style, like I would say was especially back in the last maybe, yeah, if you look back 5 years from now, where this style was the general style of Alto Adige. I think it's a kind of a movement in Alto Adige of Pinot Noir, and I would say the biggest progression in terms of quality I have seen among all the varieties has been Pinot Noir here in Alto Adige. So much more towards freshness, towards precision. And in the winemaking also there have been a lot of changes in my eyes. Young generation winemaker took over and brought some new inputs, and as well as the clones is one. We have mainly French clones here. Also in our case, a mix of French different clones, but it's in my eyes, especially the age of the wines, which now
Yes, of
makes
course. Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
Because in Alto Adige, I never reached quite a young age of wines. Most of the vineyards has been planted from in the early 90s, in the early 2000s, the early 2010, then replanted again. I think if you look at the future, there will be even more an increased quality to come.
I'm quite impressed with the variety of grapes that you grow there, it has to be said. So I have a question for you. What are the greatest challenges when grape growing in your region?